Hi everyone, we're back here for part 2 of my interview with Dr. Tim Lyle, the happiness doctor. If you haven't had a chance to see part 1, I'd suggest you go back and watch it. We talked about the definition of happiness, and now we're going to talk about some of the lessons that Dr. Lyle has learned from his extensive work with his patients in geriatric psychiatry. So thank you for coming back again and talking to me some more.
Oh, my pleasure.
So what I really wanted to talk to you about from some of your lessons was this whole idea of attitude and having control. So lots of caregivers, when they're caring for someone, feel like they're out of control. So how can you be happy in those kinds of situations?
Well, I think the first thing to do is to realize that some things are out of our control. But we need to focus on the things that we actually can change. I think one of a great line from a movie was from Batman Begins, where Katie Holmes says to Batman that our choices are what define us. And I think that's true. We're much more defined by our choices than anything else. In our previous video, we talked about integrity. And, one thing that I can say of the patients that I've treated, the things that they reflect back on are usually decisions that they made in their lives that were hard, but good ones. When I gave this talk to the Ontario Hospitals Association in Toronto, a geriatrician came up to me and talked about one of her patients who said the one thing that they did in their life that they remember very fondly was giving back money that he had found in a wallet. And he said that transformed his life. He had been in and out of jail, and he always remembered back at this point of doing something that he was motivated not to do, but also motivated to do.
Okay.
So when you choose to do something that is hard, sometimes it's life transforming.
Okay. So then control may not necessarily be as important as choice.
Well, I think the choice tells us that we have control.
Okay.
Even when we don't control other things, the one thing we do control is our choice.
Okay.
One of the best talks I ever went to was a talk given at the University of Ottawa by a Mexican architect. And in it, he talks about the story of how he was kidnapped. Okay. And it was a compelling story, a riveting story. And in it, he outlines his journey of when he lived several months, I think 9 months, in a 5x9 cell. And in this time, he physically became weaker. At one point, he was, at the low point, he was living in his own excrement, and he couldn't get up. And they were giving him alcohol, and he was using whiskey to numb his pain. And at one point, he decided that he would throw the whiskey down the toilet, or he actually was a pail.
Okay.
And he decided at that point that he would gain control over his life. The one thing he discovered is he still had a choice because he controlled what he decided to do, or what his attitude would be at least. And that was transformative for him.
Okay.
I spoke to him later on at the university residence, and he told me that 10 years after he was freed, he was having difficulties with his wife. He was working longer hours, and he recalled that these captors had made these videos of him every week and sent it back to his family to try and blackmail him, get more money. And his wife said, when they were arguing, she showed him this video of him in the middle where he had this transformation, where he started living this life and making decisions. And she said, this person here in this video was happier than he was. And he wept, and he realized she was right.
Wow.
So I think our external circumstances do not have to define who we are or our happiness. Viktor Frankl said something similar, in Man's Search for Meaning. He says that, everything can be taken from man, but including the last of human freedoms. The one freedom that a person has is their attitude, or the way that they face potentially their end or their destiny. So even if you're in a gas chamber, the one thing you can control is how you face your end.
Okay. And so through your choices and your attitude, you can find happiness.
Well, it transforms things if you give purpose to them, okay, or if you are able to realize that you are still making choices, even when everything else is stripped from you.
Okay.
if you're conscious and you're aware, you're still making choices.
Another thing that you talk about in your talks quite a bit is courage and pain. And I'm wondering if you could comment a little bit on the role of pain in particular in happiness.
I think in the 2nd century, there's Jewish religious writing that talks about how pain is connected to the gain. So no pain, no gain was not something from the 80s.
Okay. It wasn't?
Well, it was in Jane Fonda's videos, but
Okay.
it was before that.
Okay.
And I think people realize that, something good can come from adversity and pain. I think we have glimpses of it in our own lives, where when we struggle, those moments in our lives when we struggle and persevere, there is often tremendous growth. And it often takes a lot of courage in those moments. I think if you think of people like Steve Jobs, he was fired from the company he started. Mm-hmm. Or Walt Disney, he was fired early on for having a lack of imagination.
Right.
And Albert Einstein flunked math apparently several times. So these people clearly struggled with adversity, but they persevered. And I think that kind of perseverance is transforming. So with some sort of difficulty or pain, can you be changed? I think the answer is yes.
Okay.
We learn a lot from actually struggling, I think. And pain itself helps us realize that what we can do and what we can't do.
One of the other quotes that you have in your talk is from a Rabbi Abraham Heschel, I think, mm-hmm. about that if someone hasn't suffered, they can't teach me anything. So this idea that you get wisdom from suffering, is that part of happiness as well? Is it the gaining of wisdom?
For sure. We gain wisdom. I think if you can imagine a person who's never suffered at all, how much wisdom could they actually have? It's part of our human experience to suffer. In a way, a person who has not suffered also has not loved anyone. Okay. Love and suffering, I think, are connected.
Okay.
If you don't want to suffer at all, don't love anything.
Right. I remember someone had said once you have a child, it's like part of your heart is walking around outside your body.
That's right. Yeah. I think nothing threatens your own integrity as much as something that threatens the life of your children. And I actually do think that helps us forget ourselves. When I became a parent, I think I became a better person because I was able to forget myself and was able to just realize that for this being in front of me, I would not hesitate for a moment to lay down your life. Mm-hmm. And in those moments, it's that kind of self-forgetfulness where you're truly happy.
Okay. So those are great life lessons that we can apply as learning to forget ourselves, finding happiness through the pain and suffering that we do endure and the choices that we make. So thank you very much for those lessons. And in part 3, we're going to come back and dig in a little bit more into this whole idea of love and being openness to love as being part of happiness. So thank you very much, Dr. Lau.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks so much for watching. Remember to like this video if you do, or share it on any of your social media accounts. I'm Nicole Scheidel, and you're watching a Fit Minds production.